Commission content: 3 large fire slimes have appeared in Whispering Woods. Please kill them quickly and solve the problem as soon as possible, to avoid causing a forest fire. Fischl is a senior investigator of the Adventurers Guild, with rich experience. She let Elms do a high-altitude reconnaissance, and then took Ellen through the Whispering Woods. Soon, the two found their target. 3 large fire slimes were wreaking havoc in the forest. They emitted scorching flames from their bodies, making the surrounding air unbearably hot. Ellen, that should be our target for this time. Fischl pointed at the red slimes and said she knew these slimes were very dangerous, and if they were careless, they might be burned by their flames. Fire slimes are made of fire elements. They emit high temperatures all over their bodies, and they are also soft. Ordinary fists and feet can't hurt them, and they will be scalded by their high temperatures. Fischl continued to explain. She wanted to remind Ellen to be careful, and not to get close to them easily. I heard that you practice swordsmanship, and you will be at a disadvantage against fire slimes in close combat, so just leave these fire slimes to this princess to deal with. Fischl squinted her eyes and gave Ellen a sweet smile. Her tone was full of confidence. She felt that her archery was enough to deal with these slimes. She didn't want Ellen to take risks. Thank you for your concern, Fischl, but I also want to help. I don't want to just watch you fight alone. Ellen shook her head. Her eyes sparkled with determination. She didn't want to be a weak person. She wanted to fight alongside Fischl. Fischl, don't worry. I have confidence, and I'm not a person without strength. Ellen smiled. Ellen finished speaking and rushed over like a chicken blood. Ellen, don't. Fischl saw Ellen rushing up and was anxious. She called Ants to go and help. However, at this moment, something unexpected happened to Fischl. She saw the white-haired girl who rushed halfway, stretched out her hand and summoned a large number of light spots in the air. Countless light spots quickly gathered in her hands, and a beautiful blue and white bow in her hands out. The girl shouted softly, and the vision hanging around her waist glowed with blue and white light, and the ice elements in the air were mobilized by her. Ganyu Liuqian archery shoots very fast, but if you follow the normal process of taking arrows, loading arrows, pulling bows, aiming, and shooting, it would take at least 4 or 5 seconds to shoot an arrow. In these few seconds, according to Ganyu's archery, she'd probably shot out several arrows. But Ganyu has been honed for thousands of years, and her archery has already reached the level of perfection. Ellen's archery is too early to compare with Ganyu. Of course, Ellen also has his own method, since taking arrows and loading arrows are troublesome. Just omit these 2 steps. She saw the rich ice elements flowing between her hands, and as she pulled the bow, The ice elements immediately condensed into a crystal clear ice arrow, automatically loaded on the Amos bow. Condensing arrows, pulling bows, aiming, shooting, all in one go. In 5 seconds, Ellen shot out 3 ice arrows, and it wasn't over yet. Ellen continued to shoot. For a time, arrows with a strong chill shot at the 3 large fire slimes. Ice elements have a strong restraining effect on fire attributes. The ice arrow rain kept hitting the fire slimes' bodies, each one piercing deep into them. Although these arrows would be quickly evaporated by the high temperature of the fire slimes, every arrow hit would make the fire slimes' flames dim a bit. When their flames completely disappeared, it meant that the fire elements had been exhausted. Slimes are made of elements, and the exhaustion of elements means that their lives will end. Ellen was like an experienced hunter, agilely shuttling through the whispering woods. She adjusted her posture while quickly shooting out powerful ice arrows, suppressing the fire slimes very effectively. In contrast, the 3 fire slimes moved at a slow pace, unable to keep up with Ellen's speed. As for the fireballs they occasionally sprayed, Ellen cleverly used the cover of the forest to easily avoid all attacks. Fischl looked at Ellen's battle in the distance and exclaimed, "Ellen's archery is really amazing." Ounce also sighed, "This style of fighting is really unique. Miss Ellen's strength is really surprising." At the same time, the scene in the Whispering Woods became more vivid. The sunlight between the trees shone through the leaves and sprinkled on the ground, forming a sharp contrast with the collision of fire and ice. The forest was full of dynamic elements, such as the leaves swaying with the wind, the traditional adventure atmosphere and the modern skills collided to form a unique picture. Fischl couldn't help but praise her performance. Ellen is not only outstanding in archery, but also shows courage and decisiveness in battle, which are very valuable qualities. Fischl was really surprised. In her impression, Ellen was just a girl who always worked hard to practice swordsmanship and wanted to become a knight. But now Ellen's archery, even stronger than her. The size of the large slimes is similar to that of an adult, and ordinary people would suffer serious injuries if they were hit by them, and the slimes are soft to the touch, and have high immunity to blunt weapons and fists and feet attacks. Especially the large fire slimes that emit high temperatures, being hit by their attacks, not only will suffer physical damage, but also will be burned by high temperatures. Ordinary people have to go around when they see large fire slimes, let alone face 3 large fire slimes at the same time. But now, these 3 large fire slimes, under Ellen's ice arrow rain, were beaten without the power to fight back. Fischl suddenly widened her eyes and gasped, as if she saw something that shocked her soul. That is... Fischl's eyes flashed with excitement and her gaze was firmly locked on Ellen. At this moment, Ellen was holding a bow and arrow, constantly flashing and moving in the forest, while using Liu Qian archery to attack the fire slimes. However, Liu Qian archery is Ganyu's unique skill, with great tension and strong recoil. In the game, when Ganyu uses skyward shooting, she needs to release the force of shooting, and her movements are very large, especially when using normal attacks. Because of the recoil, her skirt often swings. And today Ellen is wearing a black pleated skirt, using Liu Qian archery. You can imagine what happened. Ellen swung her skirt frequently when she attacked and dodged, revealing some eye-catching scenery. She has the soul of a boy, and doesn't care about the modesty and elegance that girls should have. In the battle state, she was very excited, focused on the enemy, and didn't care about the surroundings. However, Fischl, who was watching the battle from a distance, couldn't bear it. Fischl's pupils shrank sharply, and her blood pressure rose instantly. Pink lace. Today, it must be this princess's lucky day. Fischl covered her nose, trembling with excitement. When Fischl came back to her senses from the huge happiness, she saw that Ellen had easily shot down 3 huge fire slimes. "Is this slime condensate?" she asked, showing a satisfied smile on her face. The remains of the fire slimes were at her feet, emitting a faint glow, as if proclaiming her victory. Ellen looked down at the spoils of war, her long hair fluttering in the wind, and her eyes revealed a faint heroism. This was the first battle she had experienced since she came to the continent of Teyvat, and through this fierce fight, she had gained a preliminary understanding of her own strength. At this time, the battle was over, and the tranquility of the forest returned, but she did not feel the slightest fatigue. On the contrary, the exhilarating sense of combat made her feel happy, as if playing a melody of victory. "I only used the Liu Qian archery technique to defeat 3 huge fire slimes. If I could use the celestial shower and trail of the Qilin, I could become even stronger. This is my first battle, and I feel that my strength will increase as I accumulate experience in the future." Ellen rejoiced, and she bent down to take the spoils, ready to go back and complete the task. Suddenly, Fischl let out an urgent scream, "Ellen, be careful." Ellen turned her head to look at Fischl, but saw her quickly shoot an arrow with thunder element, whistling past her hair, and accurately hit the fireball that was shot at Ellen. Boom! The thunder element and the fire element met, triggering a strong overload reaction, and the entire battlefield exploded in an instant, lighting up the surroundings, and the deafening explosion sound echoed in the air. Ellen's pupils shrank, and the vision at her waist shone, and she immediately mobilized the ice element force and used the trail of the Qilin. After a flickering ice light, she left an ice lotus and quickly retreated, skillfully escaping the explosion range. The chill lingered, and Ellen's breathing was slightly rapid. She gently touched the surface of the ice lotus with her hand, feeling the cold touch. Fischl and Ams quickly ran to her side and asked with concern, "Are you okay, Ellen?" She smiled slightly, showing a firm expression. "Thank you, I'm fine." "Miss Ellen, are you okay?" Oz's eyes showed worry, and he looked at her carefully. "Yes, thank you for coming in time," Ellen said gratefully. Holding the Amos bow, she turned to the direction where the fireball came from. The dancing of the flames reflected in her resolute eyes, creating a tense atmosphere. In the jungle, the grass leaves rustled. Two red flowers that were close to each other opened their petals, and then broke out of the ground. "It's actually a firewater flower," Fischl exclaimed. And at this time, the two water flowers also launched an attack, and the fire element condensed on their crowns, and then two basketball-sized fireballs smashed at Fischl and Ellen. The plants in the jungle swayed under the impact of the fireballs, and the web-like patterns of the flames stretched in the air. Fischl hurriedly dodged, and shouted at the same time, "Be careful, Ellen." Ellen dodged like a cloud and water. She avoided the fireballs flexibly, and shot out the Amos bow in her hand, trying to find a chance to counterattack in the attack gap. Her movements were like dancers dancing in the jungle, and a duel of ice and fire was staged beside her. The vitality of the jungle boiled in this elemental battle, as if resonating. As the fireballs burned fiercely, the shadows in the jungle became distorted and threatening, and the harsh sound of the flames echoed in the woods, making the whole scene more tense and intense. Damn, the information was wrong. Fischl's voice was full of anger and disappointment. "I should have thought of it. The large fire slimes would only appear in places where the fire element is rich. In this whispering forest, only the firewater flowers can attract the large fire slimes." She frowned, deeply blaming herself. At the same time, Ellen also felt her inner struggle. The firewater flowers can not only perform continuous fire attacks with a high frequency, but also form a fire element shield to protect themselves. They can also burrow underground and launch surprise attacks, and this whispering forest full of flowers and grass is their natural camouflage. The most hateful thing is, I am the vision of the thunder attribute, and the thunder attribute attacks of me and Ants will cause fire explosions when they meet the flames, which may cause a forest fire that is difficult to rescue. Fischl's eyes flickered with helplessness and guilt. She knew that this mistake might lead to disastrous consequences. Once the forest catches fire, it will not only cause immeasurable losses and ecological damage, but also increase the advantage of the firewater flowers. By then, even if we are not killed by the water flowers, we will be burned to death by the forest fire, or die from inhaling a lot of smoke and dust. Fischl's tone was heavy, and her eyes revealed deep anxiety, and the danger in the jungle became more and more obvious. Ellen also became serious. She knew that the fire whopper flower was a monster that she had experienced in the game. But now that she heard Fischl say that, she realized how dangerous they were in. She stuck her head out and looked at the fire whopper flowers that were coming towards them, her brain running at high speed, thinking about countermeasures. Fischl, can you hold these 2 whopper flowers? Just give me 2 minutes, and I can kill them. Fischl frowned and thought about the answer. It's hard. If it were other whopper flowers, I would have confidence, but fire and thunder will cause overload, and the abilities of me and Ounce will be greatly limited. The only attack method I can use now is to shoot ordinary arrows without thunder element attached, but this way I can only hold 1 whopper flower at most. Only 1? Ellen asked doubtfully. Ellen also fell into thought. Damn, at this critical moment, if I could have another helper, it would be great. But where can I find help? Hey! Wait! Ellen had a flash of inspiration, as if she had thought of a good idea. She looked at Fischl and asked seriously, Fischl, can you tell me how you summoned Ounce? Huh? Fischl was stunned. She was puzzled why Ellen asked this kind of question at this time. But the situation was urgent, and she had no time to think too much. She recalled the feeling when Ounce appeared, and then answered. Ounce came to my side with the vision, and I felt that the thunder element turned into Oz's appearance through my wish, and then a small part of my life was drawn away and connected with Ounce, giving Ounce life. Ellen's eyes flashed with determination. Then let me try it too. Maybe I can call out a helper. In the tense atmosphere, she tried to find a power that could reinforce. Ellen, you don't want to learn from me and summon a companion, do you? I just said casually, whether it is like this or not, I'm not sure. This is impossible. Fischl pursed her lips. But Ellen didn't listen at all. She silently clasped her hands together, as if a devout believer was praying. Come out, I need your help. Please help me and my friends out of danger. Please, respond to my wish. Ellen closed her eyes, her expression solemn. At this moment, the desire to live with the people she loved and liked turned into a strong wish, and burst out. At this time, the vision at Ellen's waist emitted a dazzling light. The vision, responding to the human wish and appearing. In this mysterious moment, it seemed that something in the forest responded to her call. This mysterious force permeated the forest, and Ellen's wish might really bring a miracle. The rich ice element turned into a storm and rolled in, and the strong cold air extinguished most of the fire caused by the pyro whopper flowers. The ice element kept gathering, and a huge ice and snow vortex formed in front of Ellen, making the temperature around drop sharply, and even the 2 fire whopper flowers were suppressed by this powerful ice element riot, and could not get close. When the ice and snow dissipated, a white giant egg made of ice and snow appeared in front of Ellen. The cracks on the surface of the giant egg emerged, as if some creature was about to break out of the shell. Boom! A loud noise, the ice and snow eggshell flew. This appearance showed the shocking power of the ice element and aroused the echo of the life in the forest. At the moment when the ice and snow eggshell broke, a white bird with feathers like a phoenix crown on its head, a graceful and slender tail, and a peacock-like ice tail feather, broke out of the shell, uttered a noble cry, as if announcing its arrival to the world. As it spread its wings made of ice, the ice crystals shone with rainbow colors in the sun, forming a gorgeous ice color. The bird dragged a long tail feather formed by steaming cold air, and landed lightly on Ellen's shoulder. The bird opened its mouth and uttered a pleasant and slightly immature girl's voice. It opened its narrow phoenix eyes, revealing a noble temperament. Responding to your wish and call, Foma was born here, willing to offer everything, and fight for you. At this moment, the whole scene seemed to be enveloped by a mysterious ice and snow atmosphere. Ellen gazed in astonishment at the ice bird on her shoulder, its feathers radiant like ice blue gems, each wing intricately carved, and a dreamlike cold rising. Cher's noble phoenix eyes exuded mystery, her neck long and elegant, as if carved from ice crystals. Ellen could feel the icy touch emanating from Cher, filling her with joy. It was a unique being born from Ellen's innermost soul. Compared to the Archon of the 100 Birds, Cher appeared more mysterious and distinctive. You actually did it. Ellen, you're amazing. Summoning a companion for real. Fischl exclaimed, her face filled with joy and surprise. Astonished because she never expected Ellen to summon a companion. Joyful because Ellen, like her, possessed a companion, perhaps destined to be sisters. Are you called Cher? Ellen asked tentatively. Yes, Cher came into existence in response to your wishes, your most loyal dependents, ready to carry out your will. Cher nodded slightly, her nobility and aloofness softening only when responding to Ellen. That's fantastic. Excited, Ellen gently stroked Cher's head, feeling the cool touch as if communicating with her dependents. Now, the situation is urgent. We need your help, Cher. Please, together with Fischl, hold off those 2 whopper flowers and try to control any forest fires they might cause. Cher's phoenix eyes shimmered with understanding as she solemnly replied, Master, I will do my utmost to protect this forest from harm. With Cher's assistance, the situation eased considerably, and Fischl joined the battle. While Fischl's rate of fire wasn't as fast as Ellen's, her combat experience surpassed Ellen's by far. She acted like a seasoned assassin, not acting rashly but seizing every opportunity with precision. Although Cher was a creation of elemental origin, her life was linked to Ellen, sharing life with her. Thus, Cher's strength depended on Ellen. As Ellen grew stronger, Cher gained greater vitality to absorb and contain more elemental power, strengthening herself. In the fog of this battle, the confrontation between ice and fire intensified. Cher's efforts delayed the whopper flowers, but their power remained formidable. This skirmish was far from easy. One whopper flower, after escaping Cher's attacks, attempted a surprise underground assault. At this critical moment, Fischl, hidden in the jungle, took action. An arrow shot from the foliage, hitting the whopper flower's crown squarely, knocking it off balance and interrupting its attempt to burrow underground. Taking advantage of this, Cher unleashed an ice storm, forcing the whopper flower back and extinguishing a small area of flames. With Cher's help, the situation improved, and Fischl joined the fight. Fischl's face turned serious. She sensed an impending change. The whopper flowers, under prolonged pressure, erupted in a sudden burst of anger. With fierce glares, they displayed unprecedented ferocity. Their crowns burned like flames, petals swirling in furious fire, creating a grand and ominous spectacle. Fischl reacted immediately, shouting, "Be careful! The whopper flowers have entered a frenzy. Their attacks will become more violent." The temperature in the environment soared, influenced by the whopper flowers' rage. Both whopper flowers roared silently, echoing their angry cries through the forest. Fire elements gathered around them, forming a dazzling flame shield. "Be cautious, they've activated a fire element shield," Fischl urgently warned her teammates. In the fury of the whopper flowers, their strength surged. The fire element on their crowns created a whirlwind of scorching flames. In this critical moment, they even activated a Gatling gun mode. A rain of flames descended, and fireballs shot out like a celebration, setting the forest ablaze. Cher and Fischl's coordinated attacks were disrupted by this sudden barrage of flames. "Cher, we need to adjust our tactics quickly," Fischl shouted, attempting to reorganize their defense against the intense flame onslaught. Imagine the feeling of being simultaneously sprayed by two Gatling guns. Surviving became an arduous task. It was like being in a storm, where life was in constant peril. Fischl made a swift decision, bending her bow and retreating rapidly. The fire's glow reflected on her anxious face, wind blowing through her hair, blending with the chaotic battlefield. "Ellen, be careful!" Her shout sounded feeble amidst the explosions, but her determination was unwavering. In this critical moment, she not only focused on self-preservation but also cast concerned glances toward Ellen. If anything happened to Ellen, Fischl would rush to her side, disregarding all dangers. In this chaotic battlefield, Cher's wings spread, darting like lightning through the rain of flames, skillfully avoiding the attacks. Simultaneously, she summoned ice spikes, forming a sturdy ice wall to block the threatening fireballs aimed at Ellen. Ounce is not afraid of the sea of fire, and only the Fischl life is the most important thing in its eyes. He sprayed out a thunder and lightning attack and instantly scattered the flame bombs of whopper flower. The electric light emitted from his whole body flashed in the darkness, buying Fischer precious time. As the explosion caused by the overload and the blasts from the fireballs merged into a symphony of chaos, the scene descended into turmoil. At this moment, the battlefield reached its pinnacle of disorder and tension, like a catastrophic symphony with sparks and thunder. Within a short span of seconds, when the whopper flowers ceased their attack, the surroundings had turned into a wasteland. The earth and trees were pocked with craters, and the flames ignited the accumulated leaves and branches, engulfing everything in a fiery blaze. Wherever the eye could see, there was nothing but red flames. The scorching heat in the sea of fire was suffocating. The crackling sound of burning twigs and leaves resembled a bone-chilling melody, adding to the oppressive atmosphere. The two whopper flowers, treading through the flames, approached Fischl step by step. Behind Fischl was a sea of fire. She had no more room to retreat. Without hesitation, Anne stood before Fischl, his lightning glow firm in a sea of fire. Regardless of the outcome, he would die protecting his miss, even if it meant dying before her. The red flames reflected the surroundings and made a fiery crackling sound. Fischl felt an atmosphere of oppression, as if inescapable despair was coming towards her. She bit her lip, tears of sadness flashing in her eyes, feeling helpless at the ruthless predicament before her. Having just met Ellen, she felt helpless. In this strange sea of fire, will her life end at this moment? I really hope I can get to know her better. Fischl whispered to herself, her eyes revealing a longing for the unknown and full of regret for this short acquaintance in life. However, just when despair was approaching the abyss, Ellen's voice came to her ears like a ray of breeze. Fischl, don't be afraid, there's still me. A simple sentence, but it contains powerful self-confidence. This confidence calmed Fischl's panic. She turned her gaze to the direction from which the sound came, and saw the white-haired girl concentrating on stringing a crystal-clear ice arrow. The cold air on the arrow steamed, and the nearby flames could not get close. It seemed that a barrier of ice was formed around the arrow, creating a glimmer of hope for their survival. The elemental fluctuations emanated from the arrows, so powerful that Fischl's heart trembled. This is not only an arrow, but also a fierce force that no one dares to underestimate. After calming down, she glanced at the direction where the arrow was aimed, and then looked at the location of the two whopper flower. The thoughts in her heart communicated quickly, and she formed an indescribable cooperation with the white-haired girl in a tacit understanding. She and Ellen had only known each other for less than an hour, but at this time, an invisible bond had already closely connected them. In this sea of fire, they seemed to be close friends who had known each other for a long time, with a tacit understanding. Without words, she could understand what Ellen needed at this time. It was a tacit understanding that transcended words. This bond is like an invisible bond, making their cooperation as impeccable as a tacit understanding. How can the flames ignited by the mere flower of hypocrisy make this princess retreat? Fischl swung his long bow, moved his steps vigorously, and shot 3 arrows at the flower of hypocrisy, cleverly blocking its progress. At the same time, she stepped quickly, her way back was cut off, and she ran flexibly to the right. The arrows were flying, constantly blocking the progress of Whopper Flower and at the same time widening the distance between her and Whopper Flower. While blocking another Whopper Flower, Cher cleverly released cold air, extinguished the flames, and created a path for Fischl to pass. The cold air filled the air, extinguishing the flames one by one, opening up the road and adding an atmosphere of ice and snow to the battlefield. Finally, after getting 20 meters away from Whopper Flower, Fischl winked at Cher, and then shot an arrow at Whopper Flower accurately and decisively. This arrow is unusual. It is a powerful arrow with extremely strong thunder element attached to it. Under Fischl's precise shooting skills, the arrow accurately penetrated the flame shield of Whopper Flower. The powerful power of the thunder element was released in an instant, and the dazzling light of lightning along with the impact of the arrows instantly disintegrated the fire element shield of the Whopper Flower. At the same time, the explosion caused by the overload reaction burst out in flames, filled with smoke, and sparks flew everywhere, causing a very strong impact. At this moment, the intertwining of thunder and fire formed a shocking visual feast on the battlefield. This confrontation of natural elements is like a dance. Every arrow is a musical note, and every lightning is a gorgeous dance. Fischl appears so adept in this visual feast that he seems to be leading the dance of the elements. Her eyes sparkled with determination, which met with the lightning to create a stunning image. Cher was assisting, and the cold air she released was like the background music of the scene, adding a lot of color to the confrontation. After the shield was broken, Whopperflower would have fallen into a brief state of being hollowed out. At this time, he was hit by the explosion and was immediately thrown far away. At that moment, the impact of the explosion was like a huge punch, knocking it away hard and causing sparks to fly. At the same time, Cher let out a loud phoenix cry and instantly summoned 15 calf-thick ice pigs. These ice pigs, as fast as lightning, with a bite in cold air, hit the other Whopperflower hard. The powerful ice cone not only broke through the fire element shield of Whopperflower, but also blasted it away. The cold force of the ice cone extinguished the flames, creating a scene of extreme cold and hot collision. The scene is like a dance of natural elements, with ice and fire intertwined in the air, creating an intense and beautiful picture. With the perfect cooperation of Fischl and Cher, the two Whopperflower broke the shield at the same time and flew to the same direction. At this time, Fischl smiled slightly, while Cher quietly stared ahead. The tacit understanding between the two was like the collision of ice and fire, silent and strong. When the two Whopperflower landed in the same place, Irene, who had been holding back for a long time, finally took action. Crush it into ice slag under my frosty arrow that has been charged for 2 minutes. Ellen shouted angrily and released her bowstring. As she roared, an astonishing cold light burst out from her long bow, like a cold ice blade cutting through the night sky. The icy energy of Xuanhuaya shines in the night, outlines a deep blue, and goes straight to the target like an extremely cold blade. At this time, Ellen's eyes flashed with firmness and determination, and her movements were like the arrival of the goddess of ice and snow, injecting a cold and mighty power into the entire battlefield. In the end, the ice arrow broke through the flames with incomparable power and hit the corolla of Whopperflower. Then, the frost bloomed, and the huge ice element attached to the ice arrow exploded instantly. Boom! A huge explosion of ice element through the forest. At the same time, a cold mushroom cloud more than 10 meters high also rose into the sky. The cold current generated by the explosion crushed all around, instantly crushing the large flames. Like a sword of cold current sweeping across, the forest returned to tranquility. This scene seems to be the magic of nature, interweaving fire and ice into a magnificent picture. In this showdown between cold and heat, natural elements dance, demonstrating the magic and power of nature. The Whispering Forest is not far from the city of Mondstadt. After exiting the bridge at the gate of Mondstadt, turn left and you'll be there less than a kilometer away. As the smoke fills the air, the trees in the forest are looming under the light of the fire, as if they are huge. Candlelight flickered in the dark night. Now, the perimeter of the Whispering Forest is surrounded by the silver-armored soldiers of the Knights of the West Wind and the brave adventurers of the Adventurers Association. They look heroic and determined in the firelight. At this critical moment, some enthusiastic people from Mondstadt who came spontaneously also joined the action, holding buckets and wet towels, trying their best to help put out the fire, and jointly built a front line between human beings and natural forces. At this time, the young lady with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a single ponytail wearing the eye of the wind god on her waist squeezed into the crowd with gnashing teeth. She let out an angry roar. "Klee! Did you do it? Come out quickly!" The roar of the crowd made the whole scene tense and compact. The anger in the young girl's words grew stronger, like a volcano about to erupt. Fortunately, a girl in red wearing a red bunny ear knock quickly emerged from the crowd. This girl is Amber, the scout knight of the Knights of the West Wind. "Captain Jean, don't get excited. Have you forgotten that Klee is still locked up in the solitary room because she exploded the fish inside a lake yesterday?" This? Being reminded by Amber, Jean couldn't help but froze for a moment, then covered her forehead and said helplessly, "Oh, I am too tired, or am I sensitive to this child Klee? Every time I hear, whenever there's a fire or there's an explosion, the first thing that comes to my mind is Klee face." "Forget it, Amber. Has the cause of the accident been investigated?" "The cause of the fire cannot yet be determined, but according to Mr. Celius, the president of the Adventurers Association, 2 members of the Adventurers Association accepted the commission to go to the Whispering Forest to eliminate the large fire slimes an hour ago. Maybe the accident that caused the fire was related to this." Captain Jean frowned and thought for a moment before saying, "Being able to accept such a commission shows that the adventurer's strength and experience are sufficient. Dealing with a few slimes should not lead to such a fire." Amber added, "Perhaps an accident occurred during the execution of the mission. After all, the ecological environment in the Whispering Forest is complex and difficult to predict. We will investigate as soon as possible to find out whether there are other factors that caused the fire. By the way, who is the adventurer who accepted the commission?" "It's investigators Fischl and Ellen from the Adventurers Association." Mentioning the name Ellen, Amber's face clearly showed a trace of sadness, because she actually admired this girl who worked hard to practice and wanted to become a knight. Amber looked at the sea of fire in the distance, her eyes full of worry. Their parents were crazy and wanted to break into the fire to find their children, but we stopped them. Amber paused and continued, "Also, as soon as Noelle heard that someone was trapped, she opened the shield and wanted to rush into the fire to save people, but Kaya persuaded her for a long time and arranged for her to do other tasks. Now the whole scene is full of tension and worry, and everyone is working hard for rescue. Ellen, the child, is obviously hardworking and serious. She just obtained a vision yesterday. I also thought that she would definitely pass this year's assessment, and then I, the senior, would be able to take good care of her. But who would have thought? Don't be sad, Amber, maybe they are all fine." Jean could memorize the names of every Mondstadt resident, especially Ellen, a hard-working child, which impressed her even more. Now that something like this happened to them, Jean felt very uncomfortable. She looked towards the sea of fire, her face full of worry. Ellen and Fischl are both outstanding new generations of Mondstadt. Their accidents also worry me. In the name of the acting head of the Knights of the West Wind, I promise you that they will be rescued safely." After appeasing Ellen and Fischl parents, Jean stood on the edge of the sea of fire with a long sword in hand, and the wind surged around her. Just when she was about to use her sword to control the wind to force a way out of the sea of fire to save people, a sudden change occurred. Jean saw a little blue light in the sea of red fire,